Hi everyone, it's Rohini Kapoor from Step by Step Talks, and welcome to another edition with Rhona. This is our last and final edition with Rhona, and I'm going to miss her so much because we've had three fantastic sessions and we've had so much fun, so much to learn about. In fact, I had somebody here talk to me about the podcast, our last podcast where we talked about orphan policies, and they were asking me, what are orphans and how do they exist? So that really has created an interest. Thank you so much, Rhona, and
Oh,
welcome
my
again.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Rhona, before we start today, Step by Step Talks would like you to give us a tip for women who may have been through a divorce or may have been through a bad experience and are stuck in a financially bad position. What is the first step you can give us? Some advice as to pass on to our audience as this is what you need to start doing, and don't take your experience as a failure, but take it as an experience that's going to make you grow better.
Such a fantastic question, Rohini. I would think that from the very first perspective, a woman needs to just accept that this situation has occurred. And as you said, this is the opportunity for growth. And it starts with education. I would think that when I think about even going to school, there wasn't a lot on financial literacy, really on how to live your life. And this is an opportunity for women to really turn their life around, figure out what it is, take an assessment of where you are right now. What is it that is happening in your life financially that you feel in your heart is not working for you, has not worked for you? Now you're on your own. And this is the greatest opportunity you have, is to seek out other women who have been through this situation, or seek out some financial advisors, lady financial advisors who can help you assess where you are and help you build a plan.
That's fantastic advice, and I think our audience is really going to appreciate that. That number one, education, and get a financial planner. Even if you have nothing, let's start with something small. Thank you, Rhona.
My
Okay,
pleasure.
all right. So today we are going to talk about artificial intelligence, and Rhona's going to give us an insight on how artificial intelligence may be a very good value-based service but cannot replace a person, particularly for orphan policyholders who are at the greatest risk of abandonment right now. I think a lot of advisors are going through artificial intelligence, but clients need to understand that it's important to have a person on the other end to talk about what you may have or what your family members may have had that you don't know about. Am I right, Rhona?
Absolutely. You know, Rohini, artificial intelligence is making inroads into many aspects of the financial services industry. And when it comes to insurance, I would say AI is contributing to improving underwriting, even pricing or fraud detection. It can actually provide predictive analytics for identifying policyholder lapse risk. And there's chatbots, there's virtual agents, etc. But you know, the dangers of AI are expanding faster than the industry can keep up with. This is a very important topic that we're ending our conversation on, because it's bringing to the forefront the reality of our environment and what's changing.
So almost no one is talking about the ethical and
Mm.
human implications of AI replacing, as per your points to me, replacing or eroding advisor-client relationships. Tell me, how can we go around this? Because I went on to a conference a few weeks ago, and everything was artificial intelligence, and it looked amazing. I mean, you're booking appointments to artificial intelligence. You're making your marketing material using drones. We are replacing a lot of the work through, let's put it this way, politely said, machines, right? And there's no empathetic person on the other hand when you're looking for something and you need to speak to a human being.
You know, Rohini, think of it, artificial intelligence. It's not actual intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? It's the gathering of data. When you're putting this information, a policyholder's information, or let's look at one example where AI is contributing to helping advisors to mine an in-force book of business to make new sales. Okay,
Right.
let's think about that. What about client protection? What about policyholder education? What about long-term servicing standards? That side of the issue cannot be done with a robot. It has to be addressed. So I have, as you know, written a white paper on the importance of partnering AI with the human factor, because there's so much that AI cannot do. And one thing that's really important is the ethical standards of their data being put into an artificial intelligence algorithm to determine what would be a good insurance recommendation for them. Because you can put in the same algorithm into two different types of AI sources and get two different responses
Yeah.
based on the data that they've already collected into their data bank, just like ChatGPT, for example.
That is scary because I mean they're getting two different answers from two different sources, and neither one can be correct. Maybe.
But there, it's interesting. I found this great article. It's called AI and Ethics: What Advisors Must Know. This is just an article from February of this year. I'm happy to send that link to you if any of your listeners want to get access to that. It
Of course.
clearly lays out the ethical implications of the protection of policyholder data. And
Yeah.
another thing that I have done is reached out to our Canadian regulatory bodies about
Okay.
this whole issue,
Yeah.
which is just on the horizon of it being explored. And I think advisors and clients need to be prepared in advance for this.
Definitely. Now, how does your service help in this?
How my service helps in this is two things. Number one, I am passionate about helping advisors and more specifically insurance companies to ethically service their orphan book of business. Now, we have two types of orphans. You'll probably agree, Rohini. There is the orphan, which I'll explain in a minute, and there is the neglected
Orphan.
policyholder. So a
Yeah.
neglected policyholder may be has had an advisor for a long time, and that advisor doesn't contact them. Sold
Yeah.
them insurance 10, 20, whatever, but they're connected to an advisor that's legitimately in business. The orphan could be a neglected and abandoned policyholder from a legacy book of business that the insurance company acquired and has not provided a servicing aid advisor code to support. So that's number one. I want to raise awareness that this issue is out there, and there are a lot of clients, consumers, that are missing out on valuable contractual benefits that they are entitled to under the promise to serve those clients. The second thing is I would like to create an ethical certificate of completion, if you will, or an accredited CE program for advisors to understand the value of having a servicing policy. We have no national servicing policy in this country like we do for financial services, like investments. For
Yeah.
example, when a client comes to an advisor to do investing, they have to client a client service addendum. They have to sign a document that explains clearly the extent to which the know your client, the extent to which your risk assessment, risk tolerance is assessed. All of this disclosure is there, but there is nothing in Canada, or who knows, probably anywhere, to service a client who
The
buys
orphan
an
parent.
insurance policy. We and I'm working on developing that accreditation with a pilot project with people
I
in the ethics industry.
I think that's fantastic because I remember when I started, we used to have, our managers train us on how to service and how to follow up after delivering a policy. So it was all done in house, but that was the old style training, which is not available right now, right at all. I think that's something that's very much needed, and I do really applaud you for getting something like that started because it will help the insurance industry in a very big way. Let's talk about consumer advocacy. Now, there's CARP, there's Fair Canada. While these groups advocate for financial fairness and access, there's still the topic of orphan policyholders, you said, is never discussed or is never brought up. Now, why?
And that's a really good question as to why. When you think about it, I approached CARP and I said, I would like to propose that the orphan policyholder issue be adopted with CARP as a very recognized advocacy organization. It's rarely, if ever, mentioned. I can think of two things. So if we look at the fact that there are still policyholders out there that have a policy that was sold decades ago, they may have a care need, or they may have a critical illness, or they may have a terminal illness, and they're not aware that they have access to benefits within those policies right now today. Why wouldn't we want to bring that to their attention? I really feel that it's just on the verge of changing. It has to. The more we get the message out, I'm reaching out on every level. I've reached out to the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, because I feel the more that this can be communicated as an issue that probably affects every insurance company worldwide, that there is no standard for servicing. It doesn't exist in favor of making new sales. This book of business is also being farmed out, Rohini, and being sold to reinsurance companies because insurance companies don't want to have to deal with that future promise. So it's happening today. It's the research I've done, is that these old books of legacy business, or closed books as they're called, are being sold. The policy still belongs to the insurance company. The benefits are still to be paid out of it. But what happens to the servicing requirements? So I'm just continuing to get the message out. And maybe we will have an organization like CARP see the value of doing that. But it's just a matter of knocking on a number of doors and getting the message out and seeking whatever support I can as I grow the nonprofit Insure Justice. So anybody who's interested in helping me to grow that, it's a nonprofit in the making, to be that neutral place for education, for policyholder awareness, for understanding their contractual rights, for things that advance in the industry. Sometimes policyholders are the last to know. We have so much information going on out there, and all consumers want to know is, to what extent should I have servicing for this policy going forward? We don't have any place where they can go. If they're lucky to find a 1-800 number somewhere, but we don't have a central place that can house all of this important consumer protection.
That is very true, and you know what? I'm glad you're working on that, because we definitely need that. Now, I want to know that in all these 4 sessions, this is our 4th session now. I want the audience to know how your work stands out. How does your work stand out, and how can people get in touch with you, once they hear what we're saying? Because I'm sure there's thousands of people out there who may realize, oh, I think grandma had a policy, my dad had a policy. We don't know what happened to it. We just need, information. And I think when I chatted with you a few weeks ago, you said, they can't even get that information because of all the privacy laws now. You can't just call and say, right? So how does your work stand out?
Well, I know I bring an expansive evolutionary perspective to this issue. Having going on 5 decades in the financial services industry, understanding what's changed, the evolution of how insurance was distributed right now to today, how different things are. You and I started in the industry under a totally different model. So I understand all of the mergers. I did an assessment the other day, Rohini, just as an update for myself on the potential numbers of orphan policyholders is around 2 million in this country. So I want to build an infrastructure, especially when it hasn't been done before. Then we need to rally around all the different component parts, from education to ethics, to bringing an awareness to the consumer, to having standards in our industry change, how can that not be good that we have an actual national in-force policyholder servicing standard to set the precedent as a country and as an industry? I support the blending of technology. I mean, technology can do good things and it doesn't replace advisors, but you know what we need, Rohini? We need advisors that are able and willing to help support us, support those orphan policyholders, because we cannot just ignore them. Every day, a new orphan policyholder can be created. And I'm really advocating for policyholders. I mean, the next generation of advisors deserves tools. Otherwise, technology is just going to run rampant without any perspective on how technology and advisors together can work together to make this change happen.
Well, you know, you said earlier, and it was a good point, ethical standards. I mean, definitely some ethical standards need to be put into place so that as these changes happen, there is something for the advisor to follow or the financial planner to follow. And, you know, be aware that you are obliged to call the client, or you're obliged to make a call once a year or try and find who they are instead of just ignoring them and earning. I guess some of these clients earn renewals and some don't if they're paid up policies. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I think there is a number of levels of how in-force policyholder service is either addressed or not. And I would say the majority of it is not. I've
That's
written out
good.
a checklist as well, Rohini, for a client who may have purchased a new policy or has an advisor they bought a policy from, on how they can hold that advisor accountable. How
Okay.
we want consumers to understand as well that they can participate in this request, to understand what servicing requirements that advisor adopts in their practice. For example, we could ask any advisor today, what is your best what is your business practice in servicing and supporting your existing insurance clients?
Right.
Isn't that a good question?
Very.
Well, we really don't have anything. I guess if the client calls in, or, I actually had somebody say that to me, a long-standing advisor saying, well, the client can always call in and get information. This is one of the things that is a misconception. Clients don't often remember that they have these option dates or riders to exercise, for example, or access to the death benefit early if they needed it. Who knows that?
Yeah.
It's you had that practice. I said to every new client, I had a document of engagement which explained to them what they could expect from me as their advisor, ongoing insurance reviews, regardless of whether they needed new insurance or not, because
Right.
at some point in the future, may need to access the benefits in that policy, and I want it to come from me. So this is going to change. I want this to change our current standards. I want us to implement an ethical perspective around the use of technology and private policyholder data. And I
Right.
want to see a new breed of advisors that are we need lots of women coming into this industry. I think this, I will add that this is a perfect opportunity for women who are looking to get into the industry. They may not feel comfortable approaching friends or family, but they would be able to either partner with an advisor who's retiring, or partner with an insurance company that has a good program, or be part of Insure Justice's network.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
why not? And then that way you have somebody to call and somebody to help. 2
The issue
million
right
policies.
now, I think, I don't know, I've been doing a bit of research on women joining the financial industry. And I support it 100%, having been in it myself. But I think the problem right now is that there's not enough training been given when the advisor starts. So they sort of fall off after a couple of months, or maybe, maybe even a year, because it's a hard industry to get in. And by the time you get yourself, a little bit successful, it takes a few years. So you need that manager, you need the support, financial support, each and every kind of support when you're starting out. And that's not existing anymore because it's all brokerage now.
That's very true. It's all brokerage. But I saw an article the other day, just regarding the whole thing, whether it's women or men, just the lack of younger people, for example, or just people coming into the industry for those reasons you just mentioned. And it was a proposal to have advisors come in part-time. You know, when I started in the industry, I had a part-time draw for 6 months, and then I was on straight commission. Oh my goodness. Like, talk about a shock when you went on straight commission. But I think that the industry itself, even if there's a way to create a hybrid model, insurance companies were the ones that had a career agency system.
Of
So
course,
for
that's where I
them,
started.
yes, so did
Mm.
I. So for them to create a hybrid model of in-force policyholder servicing and some element of a part-time component so that people are not 100% without some revenue somehow. I mean, a person can come into can get an insurance license today and do the business part-time. So why can't we have part-time advisors, at least until they have a bridge for where they start to build a little bit of a successful business? And you're right. It does, no doubt, I think, include mentorship. It has to include mentorship. It has to include somebody with experience in the industry. And there are a lot of them out there. There are opportunities for this to happen. It just is somebody running with an idea. And I think that the in-force book of insurance business is a great place to start because they're not having to look for any new clients. There's somebody right there and their extended family that they can help.
Exactly, exactly. And the fact having a person tell you what to do or be there when you're having a bad day is so important
Mm.
because they may be orphans, and I know I dealt with a lot of orphans because that's the book I was given when I started. And it was, at that time it was easier to find people. You picked up the yellow pages and looked for numbers and called them. Right now privacy laws do not allow you to call unless you have their consent to do so. So, it makes it a little bit difficult, but that doesn't mean that there's no way out. You can find a way to work with the orphans, and managers know how to do that.
Yes, absolutely. And every industry has evolved. It, but we're missing the point as an industry in the insurance side is that these promises to pay are sometimes many decades in the making. So somebody taking out a policy, if you renew your home insurance, you're just renewing your home insurance every year, and hopefully there hasn't been too much that's happened in the claims area or premiums haven't gone up too much, but you just don't think about it. You just renew it every year. But we have
That's
to
right.
recognize that these policies need to be reviewed because it's so in a lot of cases there's policies that aren't sold any longer. For example, critical illness, when it came into Canada in the 2000s, uh, didn't have as many definitions as it does today for
Yeah,
which
definitely.
covered conditions. Remember, it was the top
Yeah.
four and maybe a couple of others, and then it got standardized in the industry. There were critical illness riders, for example, attached to life insurance policies that if the client canceled the policy, they'd lose the critical illness. It's little nuanced things like that that we need proper training in how to look after these people, Rohini.
Yeah, you are so right. Yeah. And I think in the last 4 episodes, or the last 3 episodes plus this one, we have spoken quite a bit on that. And I do hope that, our audience get a little sense of how important it is for them to check their orphan policies and talk to their financial planner. And if they don't have one, find one, or else
Exactly.
contact you, Rhona, or contact me, and so that we can guide you in the right place, right? So in the last few sessions, we've talked about in-force policy servicing. We've talked about policyholders, orphan policyholders, ethical standards, consumer rights. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Rhona, in our last session that we can bring awareness to the consumer that is important? Because, all these points that we've spoken about do lead to getting a sense of urgency to the client out there, that get in touch with your advisors. There is a lot sitting out there for you.
So I would add to this, and I want to thank you, Rohini, for your support, for your interest, for what you're doing, because it isn't just about those individuals out there who may have an existing policy that hasn't been looked after or hasn't been serviced. But what about the number of individuals across Canada right now at this moment who have just bought insurance.
Yeah.
What servicing standards should they be asking their advisor to give them in writing? What there needs to be some form of promise for servicing that policy. So I would do a call out to anyone contemplating buying insurance or anyone who has recently purchased it to reach out to their advisor and say, you know, we signed this document called a client service engagement, and it didn't have anything about my insurance policy. Can you help me understand why? And will you be providing me with something in that regard?
Yeah.
Let's encourage the clients, the consumer, to recognize that this important unilateral legal insurance contract has a life and it needs to be looked after. If that advisor leaves the industry, what's going to happen with servicing? All of these things are important.
Oh, definitely. It's just like buying anything else. We've got warranties and guarantees, and if something you buy from on a product, if you buy a product, it breaks. You're looking for the warranties and the guarantees. With the life insurance, you've got a warranty and a guarantee for life. There's somebody has to be looking after you until a payout is made at some point in time. So that's what the consumer needs to be aware of. It's just not life insurance. I've heard it so often, oh, it's just life insurance. No, it's not just life insurance. It is a very important document that you need to take care of, just like your other legal documents.
Do you know that some of the top insurance companies in North America have huge permanent insurance policy assets on the books
Yeah.
on their key executives? And we're
Yeah.
talking multi-million-dollar policies with significant cash values, because a company can have an insurance policy cash value as an asset on their books.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. It's not just life insurance. It is a valuable asset. It is a complement to an individual's financial plan or their legacy plan. And it needs to be given the due respect that it deserves.
Definitely. And sometimes the terminologies, that advisors can use, or all the language that's used in insurance documents, can be overwhelming, because they don't know the acronyms, they don't understand some of them. Make it a point to talk to your advisor to make you understand, because it can be put into very simple language so that you can understand, clearly what it says, because those documents are legal documents that can be confusing sometimes.
And not a lot of advisors are comfortable reviewing these contracts. In fact, I worked with advisors who were very afraid, thinking they might have missed something. So yes, that's why an advisor is needed. For example, non-forfeiture option. Someone listening might go, well, what does that mean? Well, if you found yourself unable to pay your premium, or you chose not to pay your premium, what options do you have for the lifetime of the contract? Do advisors ever even talk to clients about that? It's built right. That's one of the mandatory review items. Did you know that you could stop paying premiums and have a smaller policy that's paid up for the rest of your life? Did you know that you have access to reducing the amount of coverage if you can't pay the premium? There's, as you and I both know, it has to start with the insurance company, then the advisor who sold the policy, and the consumer has to get involved in demanding that support and servicing model continue for as long as they have that policy.
Definitely. I want to thank you so much, Rhona. We've had so much fun these last few episodes, and you've brought so much on the table. You've educated the consumer, you've educated me. I've learned a lot from you as well. And Step by Step Talks is going to endorse you anytime you need our help, because you're doing a very, very you're actually doing a very important thing for the consumer, and you're giving your time and your knowledge to get the consumer aware of what is so important in their documents that they should be aware of. But I want to thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, you can contact me at Step by Step Talks, and Rhona at Rhona Konnelly Consulting. And if you like what we've just talked about, if you're interested to know more, please hit share, subscribe, and like. And we will continue our talks, giving you more information about what the consumer should be doing, protecting the insurance policies, learning about orphan plans, or even learning about just basic insurance language. I think we can say that today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Rhona.
Thank you, Rohini. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hope to connect with you again soon.
Definitely. You have a super day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.